I knew that I had to put everything behind me, every thought in my head, just to try and jump in and do what I was trained to do.
An off-duty nurse jumps in to try and save a man who was shot by an aggressive driver on I-70.
It was a really real situation, and all I wanted him to do was wake up.
While her best efforts weren't enough, it's something she would still do again.
I just will never regret stopping for someone, because at one point we're all going to need help.
It's a hefty price for a recount election.
I understand that Tina's trying to raise money to be able to raise $236,000.
And tonight we look into expense reports for Tina Peters and find a majority of donors who push for her to become Secretary of State don't live in our state.
Plus, the Broncos' star-studded ownership team just landed another big name.
Hey, good evening, and thank you for watching Denver 7 News at 6. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Glad you're with us tonight. Hey, tonight we are learning more about the 31-year-old man shot and killed by an aggressive driver on I-70 and his selfless effort to try to save his life.
Kevin Piaskowski was killed Sunday night in a seemingly random shooting that witnesses say was likely the result of road rage. Kevin worked at the airport for United, and the airline called Kevin's death a tragic loss.
But before officers found him, an off-duty nurse just happened to be driving by and tried to bring him back to life.
Denver 7's Patrick Perez shares her story and why she says she would do it all over again.
I graduated in May.
Tessa Riemann Bryan put her nursing skills to the test Sunday night in a way she never could have imagined.
I knew that I had to put everything behind me, every thought in my head, just to try and jump in and do what I was trained to do.
Tessa was driving home on I-70 when she came upon the scene of a shooting that had just happened.
Two people were running down the street looking very frantic, very worried, and so I rolled down my window. I said, "Are you guys okay? Is everything okay?" And they proceeded to tell me that someone had passed out at the wheel and had fainted.
Behind the wheel was 31-year-old Kevin Piaskowski. Police say, and dash cam video shows, a driver in a stolen pickup truck had just shot into his car several times.
Before I started CPR, I tried to wake him up, and then I checked his pulse, and that's a very special feeling when you're feeling for a pulse and it's not there. And so then I just started doing CPR on him.
Officers arrived shortly after and took over. Unfortunately, Kevin would not survive despite their best efforts.
When I found out his name this morning and I saw his picture, it was really hard.
Tessa graduated from the University of Colorado's nursing school just this May. Her first day as an RN was Saturday, one day before her brave efforts on I-70.
I feel like everyone who is a nurse truly understands just the compassion you need to have, the empathy, the drive, the energy. It's special. From
mannequins to real life, Tessa says this is an experience she'll never forget.
I just will never regret stopping for someone, because at one point we're all going to need help.
Denver police say the suspect who shot Kevin was in a stolen pickup truck and ran from the scene. It's possible that there may have been others inside of it. If you have any information, call Crime Stoppers. Now, we also looked into just how common road rage incidents are in Denver. Police say between the beginning of the year and the end of June, there were at least 220 cases. Last year, during that same period, there were 239. And in 2020, even with fewer drivers on the road, there were at least 208.
Patrick Perez, thank you. Right now, Aurora police are looking for the man they say attacked people at a gas station for speaking Spanish and tried to set them on fire. Please take a look at your screen. Police say on June 23rd at 11 p.m., this man confronted several people who were speaking Spanish at the Rocket gas station at Havana in Mississippi. Police say the man told them they don't belong here and followed them to their car, and that's when police say the man sprayed the victims with gasoline, tried to find a lighter to set them on fire, threw a rock through their back window, and stole their keys. Police are looking into this as a bias-motivated crime, so if you know anything, please call police.
The two victims in the Loveland murder that stemmed from domestic violence have been identified as a mother and daughter. 41-year-old Lindsay Dahm and her 16-year-old daughter, Meadow Sinner, were killed last Thursday. Today, we spoke to a former teacher of Meadow. Chrissy Thompson taught Meadow her freshman year at Mountain View High School. She describes her as outspoken, funny, and extremely caring.
I'm still going through all of the emotions that grief brings, angry, but mostly I'm just sad that the world is now deprived of what a sweet girl she was.
There's a GoFundMe account set up to help this family. There are 4 children now under the age of 14 left behind because of the shooting. We have a link on how you can donate right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Tina Peters paid more than $250,000 for a recount of the Secretary of State's Republican primary race. Well, tonight, we have a better idea of how that money was raised in a short period of time. Denver 7 political reporter Megan Lopez has been digging through the data all day.
The recount for Tina Peters is going on right now. Peters lost by more than 88,000 votes to Pam Anderson. The Secretary of State's office told Peters that it would cost her nearly $256,000 for that recount. As of the end of June, though, Peters only had about $33,000 cash on hand. Then last Thursday, Peters sent this check to the Secretary of State. So where did all that money come from? Her latest campaign finance report is giving us a better idea.
According to that report, Peters was able to raise more than $500,000 in less than a month. That's double the amount she raised during her entire campaign for Secretary of State, and it happened after she lost the election.
That's totally unusual, and for all those donations to come in on one day, something had to happen.
More than 3,800 of those donations came in on one day, July 25th, the same day
Tina's trying to raise money to, I think the deadline's tomorrow.
Steve Bannon hosted a segment on his show talking about alleged irregularities in the Colorado primary and Tina Peters specifically. Then the very next day, Peters went on that same show and made this announcement.
We have just raised over $190,000 in the last 24 hours. People are wanting this recount in Colorado.
Nearly 80% of the more than 5,000 donations came in from out of state. We found that more than 430 came from Florida, more than 460 came from Texas, and about 200 came from Arizona, among others.
Not a lot from Colorado.
For campaign finance experts, Peters was able to do something really no one else could, raising so much after losing an election.
This amount of money, $500,000 or more, raised the very last second after the race is over, is totally unique.
But even before the recount is finished, Peters is casting doubts on it and calling for a hand recount, something Jenna Griswold told us last week simply isn't allowed.
A recount must be tabulated in the same way as the original election. Therefore, counties that use tabulation equipment in the primary must use the equipment again in the recount.
For now, the recount continues and the results are expected this Thursday. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
Well, another Denver 5 Point staple is closing, but this closing is expected to be temporary. Coffee at the Point's been serving customers at the corner of 26th and Welton since 2010. Owner Ryan Cobbins announced on Facebook over the weekend that the coffee shop will close until September 13th. The store, he says, will undergo a makeover and a culture change. Cobbins says there are a myriad of issues, including inflation, labor costs, staffing difficulties. Well, Cobbins is also hoping to settle a lawsuit with a partner who signed on in 2020. The entire staff has been laid off because of this closure.
The Broncos are adding a big name with championship pedigree to their ownership group. And no, it's not Peyton Manning. Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton has been announced as the newest member of Broncos ownership. He adds to a growing list just a week before NFL owners vote to transfer ownership. Here is Denver 7's Jason Grenauer.
With one of the great drives, Lewis Hamilton wins the British Grand Prix.
So let's start with the who of all this. An introduction for those who don't know him by Denver 7 sports anchor and resident F1 aficionado, Nick Rothschild.
Simply put, Lewis Hamilton is the greatest racing driver in the history of motorsport.
Down the inside he goes.
He has more wins and podium finishes than any other driver in Formula One history.
Switcheroo at the hairpin.
And he's tied for the most world championships.
Now it's wheel to wheel with Hamilton.
But it's his work off the track that sets him apart. He was named one of Time's 100 most influential people. He's a philanthropist, and he speaks up for the disenfranchised.
Hamilton tweeted about joining the world-class team and about the value of a more diverse leadership across all sports. That's his dog Roscoe. Hamilton now joins the Walton Penner family, Condoleezza Rice and Melody Hobson, the chair of the Starbucks board. We don't and likely won't know the contributions, stake, or roles of these members, but let's talk about the why with sports business expert Professor Mark Rosentraub.
If you want to be an owner of a major league sports team, the best way to do it is to start as a minority owner and then work your way up.
Diversity also plays a key role here. All 3 additional group members are black. The NFL has said it wants more diversity in its ownership ranks. Hamilton made specific reference to it in his tweet. Here's Ohio State professor Dr. Kwame Ajaman.
When we think about NFL ownership, It is very, for lack of a better term, very white, and for the longest time, very male. But when you think about diversity, it adds creativity, it adds innovation, it adds new ideas to, it adds more experiences.
NFL owners are scheduled to meet a week from Tuesday to vote on finalizing the Broncos' sale to this new and growing ownership group.
Just flowing, beautiful. It's like a dance.
I'm Jason Grenauer, Denver 7.
Denver 7 investigates finds Colorado crime victims were forgotten for months.
One of the challenges is there was damage that was done that can't be undone.
Our reporting put a spotlight on a district attorney, and that was just the beginning.
We are asking people to be patient while that office gets rebuilt.
Tonight, what's being done to fix a broken office and get victims the justice they deserve.